So I've got my fire and I've kind of cleared out the space that I want to lay. Now, my options are a lean-to, a brush shelter, which doesn't work good with fire, a bed that I just lay in the open and hope that it doesn't rain, and if it does rain, I just dry myself out with fire, or maybe a bed with a poncho lean-to over it, or I can create a bough bed and wrap up in the poncho and lay down on it. We're gonna have to figure that out. So either way, I need a bed, and the way that we're gonna handle that is either sticks or green juniper with bark on top of it, something. The key is make it about that thick so that it compresses to about that thick, because all you really want is about 4 to 6 inches up off the ground, because what's gonna happen is when your bare hand is in the cold or in the air, it's only so cold because it's convection heat loss, so it's not really pushing against anything. Conductive heat loss is when you put your hand on something cold, like the ground. You can feel it's automatically about 25% colder. So if you can imagine, you take all of that blood, which is what keeps your body warm, that you've got running through your armpit and your hips and your ribs, and you lay that right against the cold ground. A lot of the times, the reason why you're super cold is because you are laying directly against the ground and you're conducting heat straight into the ground, which makes you cold. So if you can pick yourself up off the ground with anything that gives you an airspace between you and the ground, and maybe even the ability for the radiant heat to come up underneath you, you're gonna sleep just fine. All right, so let's make a bed, and then if I have enough time, we'll create a lean-to cover. Otherwise, I'll just wrap myself up in my poncho, lay on the bed, and keep the fire going all night long. When you gather this stuff, don't take it all off the same spot, off the same tree. What you want to do is, you see a bundle here, you see this piece coming out, okay? Just gonna press cut there. There's one piece. Now I'm gonna move to a different location on a tree, or maybe a different location on a different tree. And you're pruning the trees. You're not really just like whacking away at them. Grab another piece here, and that just cuts that one out. Maybe grab a piece here, and just continue to grab and move. Grab that stuff that's sticking out. And as you build this stuff up, I'll load up this arm, I'll continue to cut, load up that arm, continue to cut, and then I'll come back to my pile. Now, once you've got a pile, what you can do with the VersaCloth is pull it out, and it gives you the ability to travel with a bundle. If you were in a pine forest and you wanted pine needles, you could just scoop it all into your pile. If you're out in the grass and you wanted grass, you can just grab that. This can be done with a shamog, a t-shirt, a coat, poncho, just a square piece of cloth. Again, like I said earlier, it's about learning the concept to be applied with what you have, not so much about worrying about having a specific piece of VersaCloth. All right, now, once you bring your pine boughs, or I'm sorry, these are spruce boughs. If you have pine boughs, spruce boughs, whatever, once you bring them back, you've got a pointy spot and you've got a springy spot. What you want to do, if you look at this, how it's naturally springy like this, not so much naturally springy like this, you put an art with that pointy spot on the outside and put the fluffy stuff in the middle. The reason being is you don't want to roll over on that in the nighttime. Also, ideally you make it full length, but it doesn't have to really be full length. You can actually stop at about the knee level because your feet and legs will be warm. The key is to keep your main part of your body off the ground, especially if you've got wool socks or boots or something that can protect you from the ground. If you spend the first night and it doesn't work, add more. But if you're in a hasty hurry, only make from about the knee or the hip up to the head, because that's the minimum amount. So I'm going to continue to place these. Again, pointy sides out. And in the most springy position I can. If I have holes, I'm filling holes. And we just continually make that human nest We don't have to get too pretty about it, but it's got to be good enough. And if you're running out of time because the sunlight's going down, you just grab your big bundle, throw it down, wrap yourself in a poncho and go to sleep. Another thing, there's no reason why you can't burn a fire right here, slide the fire over, and then put your bed on it, or just sleep on top of that warm, heated ground in a poncho. If you're really in a hurry, or you want to be super ultra light, or you don't want to cut a lot of green stuff, just burn a fire, separate it, put 2 long fires on your right and your left, keep them going at night, and you'll sleep sweaty hot. Like you'll be plenty warm. If you really want to go full potato on this thing, dig a pit, put rocks in it, put a fire on top of those rocks, a big long fire, and then cover that whole thing up with the clay or sand or whatever you've got, and be careful not to catch yourself on fire at nighttime. Another way to deal with that is to create a lattice or just lay long green willows on top of that, and that steam will just keep this thing cooked for about 4 hours. That whole ground will be plenty toasty. But again, you got to be careful that you don't burn yourself, and sometimes it's almost a necessity to put the green boughs on top of a pit with rocks and fire in order to keep from catching yourself on fire. If you figure it out, I mean, sometimes at night you got to wake up and put that out, but you'll sleep plenty warm even in the winter, especially in locations where we don't have snow, but it's still bitter cold. Okay, I'm gonna finish making my bed. I'm gonna see if I can find some bark to put on top of it, and then I gotta throw my poncho up before it's dark. Okay, I went and grabbed a bunch of bark that I put on top of the springy stuff, which protects me from the stabbies, and it also is another layer of insulator. Not too far from here is a big chained out area. I'm on private property with permission, and that chained out area has a bunch of just dead trees, which is a part of why I picked this area. And it gave me the ability to pull bark. Now, other things that you can use are grass or straw or reeds, which are amazing because they're hollow in the middle. You can create a base layer of pine and then put pine boughs on top of it. You can put sagebrush tips. You can put a ton of stuff. Now, if you do put sagebrush tips, it's super pungent and it's super, it might like gas you out. It's so strong. I've done that and learned the hard way. But anyway, I've got enough of a layer that I'm laying here fairly comfortably, you know, fairly comfortably that I could probably just keep the fire going here, maybe make another one and just sleep here tonight. You know, I'm actually kind of ready for a nap. But let's talk about options with this. Now, either I can hope that I don't get rained on, and just sleep in the open with a big enough fire that it keeps me dry. Or a technique that I really like to use is, I use this for winter stuff, is to wrap myself up in this poncho. Now this poncho I've already used as a shelter, so the hood's tied shut. But if I wanted to use this just to sleep in, flatten this out, make it look a little bit better. And let's say all that I had was a poncho, I would lay on here, which is nice because it separates me from all of that bark. I would wrap this and tuck it under one heel, wrap this and tuck it under the other heel. Now all I'm gonna do is just tuck these around my legs and then bring this up over myself like this. And I can sleep comfortably like this, even if I get a slight rain. And just tuck it all up and cover myself up. Now, another thing I can do, and what I'm gonna do tonight, is turn this into an A-frame, a lean-to shelter. I've got 2 of them. I can make an A-frame shelter. The problem with the A-frame shelter is it's great for rain, but it's not so great for introducing fires. So that's why we want to use the lean-to. And if you have a poncho liner like I do, you can either add the poncho liner to the poncho and wrap it up this way and sleep, and hope you don't get a downpour and try to keep your fire going. Or you can set up your lean-to, wrap yourself up in the poncho, and keep the fire going that way, which is what I'm gonna do. If you don't have any of them, you just put all of your wool layers on and your jacket on, wrap your VersaCloth around your legs, sleep on top of the nest, or heat the ground up and sleep on top of the ground. But remember, if you've got fire, even if it's raining, if you've got fire, you can stay dry. Just make it big enough that it blasts all the water out of you while you're sleeping. Okay, I'm gonna set my lean-to. I'm gonna put my bedding down, drink the last of my water and get ready for the night, because the sun is starting to push down on me. So let's get to this. So I'm gonna put up my lean-to shelter. The key is for it to be 1 step away from the fire so I don't get burnt, but close enough to the fire that I can stay warm. Also, I want the back of that shelter to be super, super close to my body so that the heat that does get that deep will stay. The further away you are from a fire, the harder it is to stay warm and the colder it's gonna get. Now, if I was making this out of wood, I would want it just a centimeter off my shoulder, because this fire is gonna heat up the wood behind me. It's not gonna heat it up super warm, but it's gonna make it like 50 degrees instead of -20 if it were to get that cold at night. So the key is to have a steep angle in the back, keep the wind off of you. It's pretty simple after that. So what I've done is I have ropes that I pre-tied to the corners of my poncho. Usually what I will do is tie them up with a hank. A couple of them have come undone, and all that's going on with that is this. A hank, and I'll show you how to do this again, is just you wrapping this up. Twisting this 3 times and bringing it over the top. What's cool about that from this perspective is it gives you the ability to deal with all of your string. What's also cool about that is it gives you the ability to just unravel it and tie it up that way. So if you want it to stay, you got to wrap and lock it down. But if you want it to pull out, just tie that hank. Now what I will do with this is the poncho is going to work about like that. It's going to be just further past the angle of me in order for it to be ideal. So I'm going to have to put this about right here. There's a bunch of ways that you can do this. What I like to do is just do an overhand knot away, okay? And then another knot towards, and then terminate that with a slip knot. And what will happen is it will be super tight. If I can tighten this piece up there. So when we go in the morning, all I have to do is yank on this and it will go away. Again, what I'm doing here is I've wrapped it around the tree. I'm going to tie it away from me. Okay. And then I'm going to tighten this up. And then I'm going to tie it towards me on this other side here. Okay. And run a slip knot through it. So that when I tighten it, it's not going anywhere. Now all I have to do is yank on this. Now if I'm worried about this coming down, all that you have to do is twist this and do a half of a hitch right over the top of this slip knot, and it's not coming undone. So you won't be able to yank on that to bring it undone. And if you, in the morning when it's time to go, all you have to do is pull that off the top, give it a yank, and it comes right off the tree. Okay, let me tighten it up again. Just want this to be fairly rigid. So I've tied it away from me, tied it towards me, twist it, lock it over that loop. Now it's not going anywhere. Now I've got my initial angle. I've got to put it into the ground. If I was in the jungle, there'd be bushes everywhere. I'm not though. So I've got to find a way to put it into the ground with what I have around me. And the way that I'm going to do that is by making a stake. So let's make a stake. Okay, all that you need to do to make a stake is this. You need a piece about that long. I'm going to cut the knobbies off. Okay, I'm going to cut this one because I want 2 stakes out of the 1 piece of stick that I cut. And the sticks are growing this direction, okay? The branches are coming out this way. So if I put it into the dirt this way, those branches will help it keep in the dirt. Now, if I pound this into the dirt, it's gonna split or be all messed up. So my goal is to put 3 angles on it. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. Now you can see I've got 3 angles on it. Let me make this first one a little bigger. So there's 1, 2, and 3. That 3-angled wedge is the most effective way I have seen, let me clean that one up, the most effective way I've seen to pound it into the dirt. Now, if you do pound on this, pound on it with another piece of wood, don't pound on it with a stick. Remember how there's a crunchy part in the middle and there's fibrous parts on the outside? If I cut this flat like this, and I've already got this cut low, when I pound on this center part here with a piece of wood, it's gonna go into the ground just like a stake. So now all I'm gonna do is make another one of these, throw a figure 8 into it with my 550 cord, drop it in the dirt, and that's gonna hold down my tarp. There's another stake. Super quick. Now that I've got 2 stakes, I can drop in there. If I've got some really loose debris in the bottom, just get a really long stick, cut a line in the dirt with another line, put your string on it, sink it in the dirt, put rocks over the top of it, and you've got a dead man anchor, and that'll hold it in the dirt as well. Or put a log on it, put a stick on it, something, just something that's not gonna move. Now that I've tied my 2 top pieces, I wanna put this down here. Now, I can tie it to a tree or something. The problem is it's not tight against the back of me, and I really want it tight against the back of me. So either I can just drop this right in the grommet of my poncho like this, pound that right down there like that, and it should hold, or I can add just a little bit of cordage to it from my hank of 550 cord. Oh, it's not tied like a hank, but that's all right, I can use it. It's about enough of a length on it. Get 2 of these. Save the rest of this for later. Fortunately, I've got more of that. So what I'll do is just tie a figure 8. We've already showed you around the back, around the front, down the back hole. I'm gonna slide this just a little bit so that I have a little bit of working string here. Then once I've done that, I can trace it. Give myself a little bit too much. So now I just trace it. That's gonna hold that down. Now I have a lot more than I need because I want to use it more than just this one time. So all that I'm gonna do is just tie another quick figure 8 on here. It can be a figure 8 or a bowline, whatever you want. And I'm gonna do it at a short distance so that when I get it tight where I want it, I can put it in. And you want the loop to be above the center half in the upper 2/3. So that when it's sunk all the way down, I stretch this thing and sink it back in. Get it past that upper level. Now I know it's gonna stay where I put it, okay? And then that goes down. So let's make one on the other side. We'll probably have to put a log on this or make a dead anchor because the wind's pulling so hard. So the wind is enough that it's been pulling it out of the ground because this is some really soft ground. So all I did is I put the stake in the ground and put a log over this one and a rock over the top of that one. All that matters is that it's not wind enough to yank it up out of the ground. And the wind keeps shifting directions. Sometimes it's going this way, sometimes it's going that way, which is gonna be a pain in the butt for me with regards to smoke, but without consistent wind, you just gotta take what you've got. So another thing that you might wanna do is to tie your hood or tie to the center of whatever lean-to that you've got away from your body. Otherwise it's flapping, and there can be a tendency if there is rain for it to pool up. Now I've tied the hood up so that it won't bucket rain, but I also have my the remaining part of this one hank. Unfortunately, I've got a couple of hanks that I can tie on this hood. Now all I'm gonna do is just wrap this around once, and I'm gonna put a stick or, here we go. Put that old thing in there, put that right there. I'm gonna tie a clove hitch. Twist it once, put it over the top, twist it twice. Now usually you can put a rock in here. I'm not gonna use a rock because there isn't a lot of rocks, it's just a lot of powdery dust here. Pull that tight, and then it's gonna hold itself. The reason why I like a clove hitch, and there's been some online debate lately, but the reason why I like a clove hitch is this is temporary. I pull that stick out, we walk away, and I can wear this as a normal hood. Now there's a bunch of directions I can go with this. It would be great if there's a tree right here, but Mother Nature doesn't always do what you want it to. So I'll take what I can get. This is a little bit too long for the string I've got, and that's about perfect. Use that same knot I did earlier where I tie away, and tie towards. And this is a little technique I picked up in the jungle. Every day we went to a different location when we were in the jungle. So you didn't really want to tie stuff that locked it down hardcore. So I would tie away, I would tie towards, and then I would lock off my loop so that it can't untie. And we're good. All I got to do tomorrow morning is undo that, yank, pull that stick out, put that cord in my pocket, and we're good. This should keep the rain off of me. The fire's small right now because I'm not in a big hurry to burn all my firewood. I just want it to stay. So as the sun starts to come down, as it starts to get cold, I can grab that mountain of wood, keep shifting it, sleep for a couple hours, wake up cold, blow on my ash pile, put a nest on top of that coal, put some sticks on top of that nest, and go back to sleep. It's not a solid 8 hours of sleep, but don't come into the backcountry expecting to sleep for a solid 8 hours of sleep. 4 hours of continuous sleep is ideal. If you wake up once to maybe pee and restart the fire, you've got a great night. Otherwise, 2 times, 3, 4 times max. Anything more than 4, you did something wrong. You need to figure out your wind situation, make a bigger fire, whatever you've got to do. So my shelter's created, my fire's created. Now all I need to do is bundle up and go to sleep. I'm gonna drink a little bit of water, maybe tidy a few things up, maybe complete my hand drill, work on some crafts, but stay busy.